Good. So for the first slide, you can see we'll be connecting Python with MySQL with Python, and second, we'll also try to connect with PHP, and it will be a review. I know you already know because in your introductory course there is a project to do that, and I actually gave you the code how to connect, and I'm going to use the same code just for reviewing, but the code segment for MySQL and Python will be new for this semester. So let's see if you go in this link. You can download this Python and you can install it while I'm talking. So say if you just click here and you will download this Python and you can install in your computer. Now, by default, it will take a place that C program files. I'm talking about Windows operating system. But for convenience, I actually install it in a C drive like Python in these locations. So whatever locations is good for you, we can install that while we are talking. Now, you can also install Anaconda, but this is a very big software. So I do not expect that we have time that every student will install Anaconda. You can do this experiment yourselves because we are going to record. You can download from here, and there are different operating system versions also available. And you can look at the recorded lecture and play with that later. So because Anaconda is a big software, and so if you install Python, you will see this kind of thing. So Python IDE, Python manuals, and documentation for different modules. So if you click here, you will see something like this window. So this is a Python IDE default. Now, if you write 2 + 2, it will give you the result 4. So basically, we didn't do any programming, but we are getting some processing of data like addition just from the prompt. So that's efficient is Python, but we are not going to learn Python. We'll only connect how to Python with this. And in future, you can explore how to use Python for web-based software development. So now we need to use this Python, the script folder. Now, PIP, you can see here in this window, PIP. So it's called pipe. Those pipes are actually different channel to install different libraries, because Python is libraries or framework, whatever you tell it. Most time it call it as a library. So this pipe create a tunnel for that library. So this pipe then install and MySQL connector. So this MySQL connector, you can tell it as a driver or connector or a framework that helps Python to be connected with MySQL, or helps MySQL to be connected with the Python. So if I go here in this Python, and if I go in the script, you can see this exe file. So pipe and pipe 3, and those are those different version of pipes. Now, if I go this directory and just type cmd, that's for command for Windows. And if I press enter, you'll find the prompt to go to the script folder. Now, you can do in various ways. You can go from run and cmd. Now you can go cd, then your Python locations. That's other way you can do that. But I found this is the ways we can go quickly. Now, if I type pipe install and MySQL minus connector, and I'm going to press enter. And you can see this package is available for me because I already installed for testing. But this is the command you need to run to install this MySQL connector to the Python system you are going to be installed, okay? Now, let's go here and you can create a new file, and new file, right? So this file you can save as a Python, whatever name you can use. So you can say, save it as, for ease of use, I'm going to save it in the desktop. Say, connect MySQL. And you can see .py. And I saved it in the desktop. Let's go. Where is the slide? And in the slide, you can see code here. So I'm going to copy this code and paste it to this MySQL, connect MySQL PHP. Now you can see this one is a comment. And this import command is importing or telling the system that we need to use this framework. And we can rename it as a small name .sql. So the word we are using SQL, you can put it here, or you can use the whole text here. So MySQL connector.connect, then connect, and you are creating an object, login object for this connection. And now, what are those elements you need to connect with Python? So obviously your host, your user, and your password. Now, the thing I added here, this port number is optional. You may connect with the port number without providing the port number, but sometimes it creates problem finding the connections, and it happened for me. So I added the precise port number. Now, how do you find the port number? You can find the port number. I can make this window smaller, I guess. Find this port number. I can make this window smaller too. You find the port number. If you go here, and you can see this is the port number we need to use because this is for MySQL port number. And for Apache, we are using 8081, but we don't need it because we are connecting with the MySQL server. So 3307, that is for me, but it might be different for you. So let's go here. And again, I add content, so I'm going to save it. And now this print statement will tell us if this object help us to connect it with MySQL to PHP or vice versa, means both component MySQL and PHP. So if I go run here and let's see run module, or you can simply press F5. And you can see this message. So this message means it is telling that it's create an object and a memory location. And that means the connection is successful. Okay. All right. So at this point, I can go back to the slide and I can close this midterm thing and go to the slide, and I can say, oops, here. So as I said, you may connect the database without providing the port number, but I make it precise so that we don't face any problem. And you can see this port number I took from here that I showed you earlier. And as soon as you get this object is created at, this is a memory location, 0x, this is a big number, so we don't worry about that. But as soon as you get this message, the object created or the connection created at this memory location, that's when MySQL is connected now. So at this point, so the code segment you can see here is for establishing connection. This method is help us to providing data, or like the passing command to the server, MySQL server and Python system. And here we can see these my cursor execute, and all the code segment you can see are MySQL code. So there are 3 segments in this code file or code segment: establishing connections, then establishing connections, this code segment, then a method for message passing, and this one is for executing MySQL commands. So let's copy this part. And I'm going to back to this here. Now you can keep those things, because we actually keep those things for testing if our connection is working or not. So if you like to keep those, nothing harm. If you don't, you can still keep that. Now file, save, and let's run this code, okay? And I added drop database if exist, and the name is my database, and print database is created. Let's run this module. Yeah, so you can see here database is created. So let's go back to our MySQL server. And if I go here in PHP my admin page, that's slow. It's supposed not to be that slow. I hope it is running. Yeah, it is running. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay, finally it is here. And if I refresh it, you can see the my database has created. And I created it earlier. That's why, but it should remove and recreate it because I asked to delete that, right? So if I delete these databases, you can go here, home and databases. And I'm going to my database. And if I drop this one, okay. Let's go back to run this code again. And my database. Let's run the module. And it says database created. So let's again go back to the server, is the PHP MyAdmin page. And we can refresh it and you can see now the my database is created and this is totally empty. Okay, so I hope it is clear for you at this point that this is working. Okay, so only the new thing for you in this part is the connection and then running this, calling this, creating this method and executing this method with MySQL commands. So we created a database. Now next, let's create the, let's connect the database. So again, we can modify the code. So we created the database and additionally, now we are going to connect the database with the Python. So same as the connection segment, we are going to add an additional code here. So we already created this thing and we are going to add here. And let's make those section, but we need my cursor method for other code segment as well. File, save, and run this. Perhaps you forget a comma. Okay, right there. File, save, and we can run again. And now it's the database is connected. So we connect the system first, then we create the database. Now we connected the database to for dealing with those roles, whatever insertion, deletion, creation, all those different kind of DDL MySQL statements. So let's go back to the slide again. Okay. Now let's create a table. So now we are in a phase that will be creating a table. So we have the same code segment here, and that's for connection with the MySQL and with the database. Now we need to use this code segment, and those are other than this my cursor method, all are actually MySQL code. And if you look carefully, you will see all those code and it is familiar with you because it's nothing but creating a table. But we are putting this code through a PHP code segment. Now save this one and run. And it says table is created. So let's go back to the phpMyAdmin, and we saw this database has nothing previously. Now it has a table. And if I click here, my database, need to refresh this so that we can see. Yeah, now you can see we created a table with customer, has no data. So it's an empty table yet. That has only columns, and those columns are ID, name, and address. Okay, good. So what is our next operation? Of course, putting some data, right? So now we created the table. It is our work to insert some data. And again, we need the same method to insert data in the system, right? So let's see, copy this code, and we already have the my cursor thing in that old file here. So I'm going to add some code. But in the material, I added those different files for you. So you'll see those in a separate file. I'm going to save this one. And now I'm going to run this code. And it's one record inserted. And you can see the code is all MySQL code, right? Oops. All are MySQL code here. Insert into customer, that's the table name. Then what are those files, and then values, and those are those values there with this. And we started to, is something cutting out? Why? It should be commit. There, yeah. So you can see two additional thing here. So my cursor execute. So instead of typing the whole thing, we are adding this command on the object dot SQL object and value object. And we put those parameters here in my cursor execute. And we are committing the database. So it saved the database. Now we are getting some command that record is inserted. So let's save this again. And let's go back to the server and choose the customer table. That's interesting. It should not be that slow. Yeah, right there. So we can see one record here. ID is 1 because that's auto increment, David and California. Okay. Now, at this point, I can take a question from you. I can take questions from you. So here you can see even VS Code. You can see, I believe at least you are familiar with VS Code. And those are those different platforms for using Python and other applications integrated in Anaconda Navigator platform or IDE. So this is also a PowerShell. Say this will bring you a prompt or shell for Anaconda. You can also use this shell from the environment menu here. Go here, root, and if I go here, open terminal. So let's using this terminal from here. Now, in the slide at the very beginning, we use a pipe command line to install the connector. Now, don't confuse. When you install Anaconda, Anaconda will help. Anaconda will install its own version of Python integrated. Okay. You can assume that would be the latest version of Python. So you should not be too much worried about that. After going to that shell, we are going to use the same framework need to be installed within Anaconda platform. And we are going to use this command line to install the MySQL connector, and it's a Python version. So let's go here in this command line. And I can see two. What is this one? So this one is the previous one. You can close this one. And let's paste this one here. So conda install -c Anaconda and MySQL connector Python version. And let's press enter. So you can see it started installing something. So done. So the installation is done now, okay? And we can use the connectors. I'm going to close this one. And as I said, you can use, if I click on home button, you can use this PowerShell to install it as well. Now you can see this Jupyter Notebook. Jupyter Notebook is, say here, this is a Python IDE, right? The same way, Anaconda gives us a Python IDE. So if I go here, click on launch for Jupyter. If I click VS Code, it will launch the VS Code. So we are not, or Jupyter Lab, those are different environment or IDE inside the Anaconda Navigator IDE. So I'm clicking here launch. Not launch, launch. So I'm launching the Jupyter Notebook. And you can see it is here and coming from the local host. So you are actually using Python environment through Jupyter Notebook using a local host in the Anaconda environment. Now, if I go here, you can see this new button and you can choose Python 3. So it will let you to open another window where you can actually write the Python code. Like say, I wrote 2 + 2 in the Python prompt. So you can write here and you can touch this, run this shell. So this is called a shell, the code segment shell. You can run here, you'll see the output 4, or you can run from here. See, it's 4. So let's remove this and start our main business connecting MySQL with Python within the, using the Jupyter Notebook within the Anaconda Navigator platform. So let's go back to the slide. And we already did those steps and you can see all those things from the shell. And we are going to start Jupyter, and we did it. Now, in this shell, you can see the command we used. First, in the shell for connecting MySQL and Python. So we use the same code segment, but we are running it from a different platform. Again, you can save this code segment, save as, and you can write your thing, whatever name you want. And if you go here in home, you can see your full computer is here. So you can IPYNB. So this extension will be the file name after a Jupyter Notebook environment. So let's go back here again. And you see, I didn't save it. That's why it says untitled 8. Means it is saved, but I have not renamed it. So you can rename it when you will be saving this file for you. So let's go back to the slide. And let's copy the code. I don't type that here, I guess. That code segment for connecting. So let's copy this code. And I'm going to paste the code here. Now you can run from here. And let's run. Hopefully it will run. And you can see the same message is creating the same object. And it is MySQL is connected now. So that means you can, whatever you are using Jupyter, because you know, like the first way I showed you with the built-in PHP IDE, that's a very raw way. But if you do some professional work with Python, then you have to either using Jupyter, Jupyter Lab, or in Anaconda. So if I go back in Anaconda, so you can use all of those IDE for, or any of them. This one also for Python, this one for Python, this one for Python, Spider for Python as well. So you can use one of them for your work. But I'm going to talk about Jupyter only for this. So now your database is connected, means now you can execute all other commands from the different shell, and you can create this untitled 8 Jupyter file, your file. And you can see here, the Python 3 is running. Okay.
Then Saba. So in this one, so is that the content.html is like the form, and to send the data from the form, and in content.php, and so here is the password and database name to connect the database, and here is like that these names are ID from the HTML form and initialize that kind of the value from the HTML form to the variable. And here is like an insert SQL sentence for to insert the data from the form in the database server. So so in content.html, so we need to action should be our PHP file and the import that's ID should be like the same with from the PHP file. So before do that, so we need to put that content file into HTTP docs. And so when we server is running properly, so we can call that and content.html from localhost. Yeah, that's what I know.
Yeah, thanks so much.